It's Ash from Super Videos back for another video. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a variety of topics that are connected in the world of The Walking Dead. It's basically a merge between discussion on the latest issue of The Walking Dead, issue 175, part 1 of 6 of the New World story arc, and some sort of crossover theory between The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead, which is separate from the discussion of the released crossover, which is Morgan crossing over to Fear. So, of course, since we're talking about comic stuff, spoiler warning for the comics up to the latest issue, and also spoilers for The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead if you're not caught up with both. So, that being said, let's dive right into it. In the latest issue, we have a new character introduced that's from the biggest community that we've seen in the world of The Walking Dead, in any medium, in The Walking Dead's comic, in the original show, or Fear the Walking Dead, and they're called the Commonwealth. This new character, whose name is Lance, starts talking to the characters or the survivors about their way of life, because he wants to understand how their way of life is before he lets them into the Commonwealth. He reveals that there is a survivor in their community who covered himself in zombie blood every day in order to survive before he got to the Commonwealth. And that reveal from the comics triggered a lot of speculation and discussion regarding the identity of this individual. Many fans theorized that this character was Nick from Fear the Walking Dead, as we've seen him use this trick almost daily in Fear. Now, although it was not revealed whether he was a lone survivor or came with a group, we can just pretend that he was a lone survivor. Not that it matters anyway. So was he Nick? No, and this is why. Using walker blood or guts is not a technique that's only used by Fear the Walking Dead characters. Rick and some of the other survivors use it in The Walking Dead's original show by wearing ponchos covered in blood. And we saw them use it in No Way Out and also way at the beginning when Glenn and Rick both used it. Also, the Whisperers use it in the comics by basically wearing walker skins to blend in with the zombies. So it's not a technique that's new, so this survivor could very well be anyone. And Lance from Commonwealth didn't mention anything about how he used the blood and didn't go into the specifics, so we can't really speculate on that sentence alone. I honestly immediately thought of the Whisperers going there when I first heard it in the comics, which could still happen. We could be seeing a reveal that a Whisperer lives at the Commonwealth sometime in the future or in a distant story arc. So the theory that Nick is at the Commonwealth in the comics is basically out of discussion from my end. They can't even do that without legal issues, since Kirkman, who writes The Walking Dead's comic, does not own rights to Fear. So it's not gonna happen. But to think that a Fear character may end up at the Commonwealth in the show for a separate crossover is not much of a stretch. So we could see a scenario in the future when the show reaches this point in the story where a Fear the Walking Dead character, Nick, Madison, Alicia, or whoever, gets separated from the group and has to survive on their own. And to be able to survive and being exposed to this way of life, covering oneself in blood, uses this technique to be able to live. And they, at the end of the day, find their way to the Commonwealth and join The Walking Dead's original show when we reach this point in the story. So essentially, we have Morgan joining Fear on this crossover that's confirmed, and we might see a Fear character joining The Walking Dead's original show in a second crossover and in a distant future story arc to cover both ends of the spectrum. Now, you may be asking, what the hell does this have to do with the title of this video? Well, it's simple. There are a few things that are hinting at this second crossover happening way earlier than we would anticipate. But it involves skipping a major storyline from the comics, the Whisperers. So, some of the things that are hinting at this are Carl's death in the show, who has a significant and important part in the Whisperers arc, from their introduction to the Whisperer War. Also, as I've said before, it will be super difficult for them to pull off the Whisperer story without Carl being there, without making it feel forced or badly remixed. Now, the second thing is that it's rumored that we're gonna see a massive time jump in Fear the Walking Dead for this confirmed crossover of Morgan to Fear the Walking Dead, which are just, like I said, rumors at this point. and I'm actually going to do a separate video on that anyway. But because of this rumor, that's kind of shining a lot of light on this theory not being so far-fetched, because it seems like they're going to be doing a major time jump anyway. Now, the last reason I'm going to talk about is that both Fear and The Walking Dead's original are struggling. They both have very low ratings. They both are suffering in terms of story and, not pleasing fans. So if they want to do something big, it might be to get caught up with The Walking Dead's comic and somehow merge the two worlds of The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. And this may be their strategy to basically try to improve ratings, basically please fans. So this basically involves Fear to skip a significant amount of time in order to align with the timeline where we are in the show at the end of season 8 of The Walking Dead's original show. So when season 4 of Fear starts, the timeline will pretty much match up with the timeline of the end of season 8 of The Walking Dead. So the connection will be sometime during season 4. The story is going to line up with the start of season 9 of The Walking Dead's original or end of season 8, depending on whether they want to do a time jump in The Walking Dead's original show or not. Because even if they skip the Whispers, they could still have that time jump from the comics. So they can do something where one character is separated and they're going to find their way to the Commonwealth. And by the time season 9 of The Walking Dead starts, or close to where season 9 is, the storylines between those two will basically match up. Again, this assumes that the Whispers will be skipped. Now, there are two additional things that point towards this theory having some sort of backbone. One is that there's a lot of room for someone to be separated in Fear the Walking Dead, given where we left off at the end of season 3. Basically, all of the characters have the potential of being separated or have been already separated. Madison can be separated from the group and join the other show. Same goes with Alicia and Nick. Now, the second thing is that we already saw this helicopter during the first half of season 8 of The Walking Dead, which they have yet to explain. And by the looks of it, this won't be related to anything or any group that we've seen so far. So these two things kind of support that this second crossover and this timeline jump theory has some sort of validity or backbone behind it. And another thing that kind of supports this or helps solidify it is location. We know Fear is set in the West Coast, Walking Dead's original is set in the East Coast, and the Commonwealth from the comics are in Ohio. So it's not too much of a stretch to think that the second crossover, given everything I mentioned takes place, happens in this location. Now, all of this being said, I hope they don't do this, because it not only robs fans of having the Whispers in the show, which is something that many fans, including myself, have been looking forward to, but it also undermines the point of having the spin-off that is Fear the Walking Dead. This would basically mean that Fear the Walking Dead is a massive disappointment and failure. So that's basically everything I wanted to share about this. Leave your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. See you next time for another super video.